Hello students, in the previous video about globalization and Indian economy, we had studied the meaning of globalization, MNC, and the objectives of establishment of multinational corporations, meaning of globalization, then international trade, then how it integrates the markets of different countries. So these are all the things we had discussed. In this video, we will be discussing more about the globalization and its impact on India and how to get the fair globalization. So these are all the many points to be discussed. Shall we discuss now? Come on. So in this video, we will be concentrating on factors that enabled globalization. That means here we will be discussing the factors, various factors which increase the pace of globalization, increase the speed of globalization, and WTO, World Trade Organization, and its objectives. Means why WTO was established and what are the objectives and functions of WTO. Then impact of globalization. There are two types of impacts, positive impacts and negative impacts we will be discussing, and struggle for fair globalization. So how to get more benefit from globalization, what measures to be taken, whether all the categories of people are getting positive impact of globalization or not. So these are all the things we will be discussing in this video. Here we are discussing the factors that enable globalization. That means here three factors are given. One is technology, second one is liberalization, third one is international organization, WTO. So let us see the first, technology. How technology increased the pace of speed of globalization. You see, the fast improvement of technology during the last 50 years. We have seen the improvement in transportation technology and faster delivery of goods across long distances. And on the other hand, the cost is also lower cost and faster delivery of goods. So because of technology, these two are possible. This has made globalization faster. On the other hand, the development in information and communication also revolutionized the way of trade which was conducted earlier. So telecommunication facilities like telegraph, telephone, mobile phones, and fax. So satellite communications, these are all the devices are used now to contact one another around the world, to access information instantly, to communicate from remote areas. So this technology has increased the pace of globalization. The other factor is liberalization. Liberalization means making things easier, removal of unwanted rules and regulations. That is what we call liberalization. In liberalization, trade barriers have been removed. The trade barriers means restrictions of the goods to be transported from one nation to other nation. The restrictions of number of goods, that means quantity of goods to be transported, has been removed. Any number of quantity can be brought and sold. In India, after 1991, the trade has been liberalized with new economic policy of 1991. So because of this also, globalization has taken its pace. The other factor is international organization, WTO, World Trade Organization. is an international organization dealing with global rules of trade between countries. Its main function is to ensure that trade flows as smoothly and without any barriers. WTO was started at the initiative of the developed countries. Its objective is to liberalize international trade and ensure that the members of WTO obey the rules. Now, 160 countries of the world are the members of WTO. As we have earlier discussed, WTO is one such organization. Its aim is to liberalize international trade. Liberalize means removal of unwanted restrictions, quotas. There should be no barriers. According to WTO, there should be no barriers between the countries in conducting trade. Trade between countries should be free. That means free movement of goods and services. So it's a part of liberalization. WTO establishes rules regarding international trade and sees that these rules are obeyed. And now at present, according to 10th November 2015, at present 164 countries of the world are the members of WTO. Impact of globalization in India. Impact means the influence of globalization, how it has influenced our lives. Here we can discuss the impacts in two aspects. One is positive, another one is negative impact. Let us see the positive impacts of globalization. Globalization has led to greater competition. Greater competition results in good quality, availability of good quality goods with cheaper rate. So this is the positive impact of globalization, one of the positive impacts. Here, because of globalization, both local and foreign producers have to compete each other severely. This severe competition led to the improvement of goods, quality of goods, and availability of the goods for the cheaper rate. And price stability will be there in global level. Because of globalization, there is a greater choice before the consumers. Now consumers can enjoy variety of goods. When they start consuming varieties of goods, international goods, naturally their standard of living will be high. So higher standards of living, another impact, positive impact of globalization. And because of globalization, some of our large companies, Indian companies, have emerged as multinational companies. For example, Tata Motors, Asian Paints, like that. MNCs, multinational corporations, have been interested in industries such as cell phones, automobiles, electronics, soft drinks, etc. It means MNCs concentrate only on few industries, not of all industries. So competition will be there with a few industries only. That's the negative impact, one of the negative impacts. The second one is top Indian companies have been able to benefit from increased competition. Not all companies. So small companies, small scale household industries have been shut down. Only top industries, top companies are getting the benefit of globalization. This is the another negative impact of globalization. And condition of workers in organized sector have come to resemble the unorganized sector. That means organized sector workers are not getting the benefit as they were enjoying earlier. So their benefits have been cut short. Most workers today are employed in the unorganized sector because of increased competition. The MNCs, they want to um, minimize their expenditure, so they cut short the benefits to the employed people. So many of the workers now have become unorganized sector workers. They are not enjoying as they were enjoying before. This is the negative impact of globalization. And we have understood not everyone has benefited from the globalization. Someone is getting benefit, someone is not getting benefit. Some categories of people getting the benefit of globalization, some categories of people not getting the benefit. Some people condition has better off, some people condition is worse off. So we have to struggle for fake globalization. People with education, skill, wealth have made the best use of new opportunity. But in the other hand, as we all know that our country is full of majority of the people are illiterate and unskilled. So what about them? The question is now how to make globalization more fair. The government can play a major role in making this possible. Government has to take some actions. Its policies must protect the interest not only of rich people but also the poor, and that has to be taken care by the government. So then what measures to be taken by the government to make the globalization fair? The government can ensure the labor laws. So labor is to be protected by MNCs by passing some laws, for example, minimum wage act, working conditions. So government has to see all these things. These are implemented properly and workers get their rights. And the second one is it can support small producers to improve their performance till the time they become strong enough to compete. So small workers, small producers are struggling a lot because of globalization. They can't withstand the competition posed by globalization. So government has to support them. If necessary, government can use trade and investment barriers. Even though the trade is free, government can impose trade barriers to protect our small scale household industries. It can negotiate at WTO for fairer rules. So in WTO, we have to raise our voice. Governments have to raise the voice to protect the interest of the laborers and small producers. It can also align with other developing countries with similar interests to fight against the domination of developed countries in WTO. And most of the developing countries face the same problem, so that the countries have to be associated with each other and they have to raise their voice in WTO against developed countries. So in this chapter, we looked at the present phase of globalization. Globalization is the process of rapid integration of countries. This is happening through greater foreign trade and foreign investment. MNCs are playing major role in globalization process. More and more MNCs are looking for locations around the world and cheaper rate available for them. As a result, production is being organized in complex way. Technology, particularly IT sector, has played a big role in organizing production across the countries. In addition, liberalization of trade and investment has facilitated globalization by removing barriers to trade and investment. At the international level, WTO has put pressure on developing countries to liberalize trade and investment. While globalization has benefited well-off consumers and also producers with skill, education, and wealth, many small producers, workers have suffered a lot as a result of the rising competition. Fair globalization would create opportunity for all and also ensure that the benefit of globalization are shared better. So these are all the challenges before us. So we have to organize ourselves to make all the people and even the last person of the country get benefited from globalization. That's all from this video. Thank you one and all.